it is. October, we're working on the tune Mad World by Tears for Fears. A lot of finger picking in this tune, some chord shapes that we might recognize the shapes, but not recognize the names, so we'll begin diving into that. Before we get started, do you have any questions, comments, concerns? It's so good to see you. I'm so happy to see you. That's awesome. Oh, I had a quick question for you, if you mind. And this is being recorded, so you don't have to answer it, or I could stop the recording or whatever to answer this question. But how has learning been since you stopped doing live in-person classes? Has it been sort of this long extended break? We haven't really touched the uke. It's just gathering dust.
No, I've been taking classes, but learning it's been okay. I
Okay.
mean, it's very, very different over the computer
Yeah. So you
than
felt
in
plateaued a little
person.
bit, but I was going to ask, have you
Yeah.
been taking
So
in?
the same feedback, isn't
Mm-hmm.
there.
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. And I try to give that as best I can but it's differing learning environment. But I've also got another question for you, like how you've been taking regular classes up until
Hmm.
this point. You just wanted to jump
Hmm.
into something different. Okay, awesome, cool.
Right.
That's all I wanted to know. We've had some consistent learning. It's not like our ukulele has just been sad and alone in its case. It's been being taken out.
Collecting dust. No.
No, awesome. That's great to hear. Okay, cool. Today we're going to start with left hand. So let's go over some chord shapes. You might know this shape as an F sharp minor, right? Which is 1, 0, 1, and 3, this F sharp minor. But we're actually going to learn this chord in a little bit of a different way. So first thing I want you to do is play an E minor chord. 0, 4, 3, and 2 is the chord shape that we're going to hold. Now, one of the things you want to pay attention to when holding this chord is that you're constantly supporting the neck. I see you do have a strap, which can be helpful, but remember our positioning, how we want to hold our hand, is always with the headstock kind of recorded. Now, one thing I want you to want to point out is that your position is actually a little bit different. When I'm holding most of my chord shapes like this, do you notice where my thumb and my hand is hitting is like right on the nut, right behind the nut, maybe even, right? All of my chord shapes. So when we play an E minor, what we've actually got to do is shift into this position so our pointer finger is lined up with the second fret. So make sure you understand that whenever you're jumping into this chord, it can prevent a little bit of that instability that you sometimes feel when you're moving from an F chord to a E minor or something like that. Cool? All right, so we're here at 0, 4, 3, and 2, and if we shift this up 1/2 step, what we'll get is an F minor instead of an E minor. 0, 5, 4, and 3. Okay, so this is our first chord shape. Our next chord shape is an A flat. And we're actually going to achieve the same thing by shifting a chord shape one shape higher. So if I take a G chord, 0, 2, 3, and 2, and I shift it up a half step to 0, 3, 4, and 3, what I've got is an A flat. Cool? Let's just go over those two shapes and go moving through whole notes. And one thing I want you to pay attention to is that these chords are kind of in the same neighborhood. See how my pointer finger's on 3? That can help me find where my middle finger goes when I jump into that next chord shape. Cool? Whole notes. 1, 2, ready, here we go. E, F minor, and A flat. Beautiful. And F minor, and A flat. Nice. Let's go 2 more times. Here we go. F minor, 2, and ready, switch. F minor, and let's finish on that A flat. All right, cool. If you need to rest your fingers, go for it, but we're going to go from this A flat into our next chord shape, which is an E flat, 0, 3, 3, and 1. Now, I like to stack my middle finger here, my ring finger underneath it. So those are the inside strings, C and E. And then my pointer finger, rather than trying to turn my hand to get that pointer finger there, first thing I want to do is just contract it all the way, as tight as I can, almost like into my palm. So then you can kind of see that you can reach that chord, and then you just put your pointer finger, or the tip of your pointer finger on that first fret. Just like that. 0, 3, 3, and 1, right? Awesome. Okay, cool. Let's go to our last set of chords, which is a B flat. Now this B flat here, 0, 2, 1, and 1, I'm going to bar with my pointer finger. And I like how your ring finger jumps up. This is actually the complete shape, and how I would suggest, if you want a little bit more of a challenge, or if that just feels comfortable for you. But one of my favorite ways to play this or voice this is to take the roof off. It just turns it into an easier chord shape to hold. And I actually think it sort of helps with all of the voicings here, because you always have that constant G string sort of ringing out. It makes it pretty. You know what I mean? Okay, cool. Let's try some E flat to B flat whole notes. 1, 2, the last 2 chords. Here we go. E flat, 2, and ready, shift. 2, and ready, shift. Nice. Ready, shift. Remember, whenever we're thinking about chord changes, what we want to think about is transformation. How does one chord feel and sound moving into the next chord, right? So here I feel my middle finger drop by a half step, while my pointer finger hops up 1 string and makes a bar, right? 2, and ready, shift. B flat, ready, and E flat. Nicely done. And B flat. All right, cool. Let's do a quick review. First chord shape. Remember, it's an E minor chord shifted up by a half step. 0, 5, 4, and 3. Same neighborhood, we're going to find a G shape. 0, 3, 4, and 3. Next shape, or next chord is 0, 3, 3, and 1. And then our last chord is B flat. 0, 2, 1, and 1. Nicely done. Okay, cool. Let's try whole notes connecting all of these shapes together. 1, 2, ready, here we go. And F minor, 5, 4, 3. A flat, 3, 4, 3. Good. E flat, 3, 3, 1. And B flat, 2, 1, and 1. Let's try again. Here we go. E minor, remember, jump that hand all the way up to our new position. And chord shape. Nicely done. Here we go. E flat, 2, and ready, switch. Last time, here we go. And F minor. Round me are familiar faces, worn out places, worn out faces, and F minor. I'm gonna double check one setting here real quick. All right, so I had original sound turn off. That probably sounded terrible, and you were very, very sweet for not saying anything, okay? In general, I sometimes forget to turn my original sound off. I haven't quite found the setting for when I start the Zoom meeting for it to automatically be there. I don't need your original sound, especially in the class setting, unless I just ask you. Like I want, oh, hey, will you show me that chord change or whatever, and we'll look at your hands. But for the most part, you don't have to worry about your original sound. But when you hear mine, as you can hear when I do this chord, and see how it kind of cuts off, you don't hear the sustain, but when I have my original sound on, then you hear that chord ring out and it sounds right, okay? So it was very sweet of you to sit through how terrible that sounded. Just so you know, I'm not recording through the Zoom meeting, so that original sound issue won't affect the recording. When you go back to listen, anytime you're watching any of those things, if I've turned the original sound off, I'm still recording with just the true mic sound in the room. Make sense? Okay, awesome. Do we have any questions about left hand? Those are the chords we need to know. That's it. Okay, cool. Now that we know the chords, what we want to talk about is order or chord progression. Remember, that's a very important term. And really, chord progression is really kind of the fundamental building block for what we need to know. It's been a long time since you've been in uke lab, but I say this all of the time. You know, there are 2 things to learn in the first week of this month. 2 things. That's it. It's going to be the strumming or the picking. It's going to be the rhythm. And it's going to be the chords and the order of those chords, right? 2 things that we need to know. And if we can get those locked, not into our brain so we like remember, oh yeah, it's a F minor to a A flat to an E flat to a B flat. If we don't just need to remember the names, we actually need to have it in muscle memory. Like our hands can move from one chord shape to the next, no clicking, and then our right hand can do whatever rhythm we're going to do. Those 2 things, and you're building the foundation for being able to add extra skills, like being able to play the riff and being able to sing on top of that, right? If we don't have that locked in, we're kind of building our house on a pretty shaky foundation, right? That makes sense? If in like week 3 or 4, you're still thinking like, how do I do that picking pattern? Or what chord comes after E flat? You know, if you're still in that kind of mode, it's really hard. It's a big challenge to ask yourself to be able to sing and play over this, right? Okay, do we have any questions, comments, concerns? Okay, cool. I just wanted to let you know too that when there's only one of us in class, it's not absolutely necessary. No, that's not true. It is necessary that you mute yourself. I was going to say, just for recording purposes, because if it's coming out my speaker, it's going to be recording in there. Okay, cool. Questions, comments, concerns? All right, we've got our chord shape. So now let's take a look at progression. Oh, that's not plugged in. That won't be helpful to us, will it? Give me 1 second while I fix the visual. Okay, cool. You got access to these handouts? Okay, cool. You got them all printed out, all of the ones that you need. Cool. All right, let's talk about chord progressions, right? These are the order of chords that we're going to play. And for the most part, in most songs, you're only going to be learning one of these chord progressions, or maybe it's two, sometimes it's three, right? You've been around long enough to know that it is really most of the time just one or two chord progressions, right? So we've got to get this memorized. We want to know how to play it. We want to know how it sounds and feels to play. And then we've got our chorus. And then we've got a third thing that we need to learn for this tune, the riff. So I like to think of these as kind of modular, right? It's like we're building blocks. And we can move and shift these around. Let's say I want to play two choruses to end the song with or something like that. It's really easy for us to understand the modularity of like the different components of the tune, right? So we've got our verse, which we were just working on, F sharp minor to A flat to E flat to B flat, that order of four chords. If we look at the chorus, we don't have any new chords to learn, but we do have kind of a different order, right? A different order. So let's go ahead and just try and play that. We'll just sight read it. F sharp minor to B flat. This is going to be a bigger jump, right? 0, 5, 4, and 3, and we've got to jump all the way down to B flat. So it's going to be a little bit bigger of a shift. Now, pay attention. Transformation shouldn't get affected too much, because if I played that shape, I want to show you something. If I kept my E minor shape here, and then I shifted to my B flat shape, look how little my hand needs to move. Middle finger jumps up, pointer finger jumps up, and I make a bar, right? If you take out position in your shift and just focus on transformation, what you'll realize is that your hands don't really need to do that much. What makes it hard is when we sort of put this position shift into our transformation. It can sometimes throw us off a little bit. It's almost like, we've wiped the slate clean and we've got to draw a whole new shape. But really what we want to try to do is keep all of the lines and dots and connections that we can to the original shape. And that's why I really love this method of trying to jump to the shape, but not in the right position, because it helps me realize what the shortest route between chords is, right? Here, all I'm doing is hopping my middle and pointer up one set of strings and then barring my pointer, and I've got the new chord shape. Only thing I have to do is shift that down a whole step while I'm doing it. Cool? So let's practice that a little bit. F minor to B flat. Cool? Yeah, there you go. 1, 2, ready, here we go. 2 and ready, shift. 2 and ready, shift. 2, ready, go. And 2 more times. F minor into B flat. Last time, really pay attention to transformation. How do my hands feel moving into that chord? Cool? We'll try one more rotation. We'll sing some lyrics. 1, 2, ready, here we go. And I find it kind of funny, find it kind of sad. Dreams in which I'm dying are the best I'd ever had. Find it hard to tell you, find it hard to take. People run in circles, it's a very... And on F minor. Cool. Make sense? All right, sweet. So we're reordering the chords, kind of a different progression, but remember, we don't have to learn anything new. So make sure we have those 4 chord shapes in our fingers. We can feel them moving. And then make sure we have those 2 progressions in order. I was probably using this language the last time we talked, right? But I like to think of every progression as sort of like a sequence of moves, almost like a dance routine, right? When you watch a dancer and they just go through some beautiful modern dance piece, that thing is made up of like 14 different dance moves that all connect together. But when you watch it, it doesn't look like 14 different dance moves. It looks like one connected move. It looks like you're just sort of flowing through this long statement of that progression. So make sure that the left hand can feel that as it moves through the chord progression. And really, our job is to connect that movement with the sound that we're hearing, right? The sound of the F minor moving into the sound of the A flat, moving into the sound of the E flat, moving into the sound of the B flat. Make sense? Cool. Awesome. All right, let's give it a try. Actually, let's see what time we got. 5:20. Yeah, we're good on time. Let's see if we can kind of flow through the tune a little bit. And I would say this. In Ukulab standard track, in this Ukulab standard track, the expectation is to be able to sing and play this song, right? You've probably experienced this in a lot of different environments. Yeah, I can do the strumming pattern. Oh yeah, I can move between the chords. And when I sing and play, it sort of gets destroyed. So you know what I mean? It's like, it's too hard to do. Our job is to be able to add melody to that rhythm and harmony we're creating with both hands, right? That's sort of the idea and the concept in standard track. So I would say this is that, especially when we're doing easier exercises like whole notes through the chord progression, I want you to start to engage your voice somehow, right? Maybe it's humming, maybe it's saying the words but not singing them, but you know, all around me are familiar. If you can start to connect that with the movements in your hand, we're building that bridge between sound and movement. And remember, the bridge between sound and movement, that's muscle memory, right? That's muscle memory, because we really don't want to be managing our hands and saying, oh, after that chord, you move to that chord, or thumb, then pointer and middle. We don't want to be thinking about any of that. We just want our hands to be doing it, okay? Cool, so as soon as you can, if you hear me doing it, try to hum along with that melody, especially when it's easy. And obviously, if we're combining scales, it might be too hard. But if you can start to engage with that melody early on, it's a way higher chance that by the end of the month, you're going to be able to sing and play this song together. Make sense? Okay, awesome. Let's go through the tune a little bit. Maybe let's do a verse and a chorus. Cool? So we'll do the first one. Oh, and I did want to point out one thing. This is probably a little fresher, a little new. Were you around when we were talking about the dot method? Do you remember the dot method? Yeah, you do. Awesome. I know it was like 5 years ago or whatever, but the dot. Do you remember the name of that girl?
Wasn't that
Oh, please. I'm going to shoot her an email right after this if you remember her name. I can't remember it. I wish I could. It was so good. If you remember, just shoot me something in Slack. Oh, remind me, we need to stop like 5 minutes early so I can talk to you a little bit about Slack, which is kind of the communicate. You didn't by chance sign up for that, did you?
No, but I logged on to it.
You logged on to Slack?
Yeah, I logged on.
Oh, cool. So you
with the link you gave me, but there wasn't anything in it.
Oh, interesting. Okay, that's actually good to know. I've got to update that link and make sure that
was her name like Rin or Rin?
Oh, yeah, that could have been it. All right, cool. So I am trying on every song sheet that I put out now to basically make a modified dot method or an upgraded dot method, right? That's a dot, that's a dot, that's a dot, that's a dot, but that's actual chord names. But what you will notice is that I only do it for one of each part, right? So here I have it for a verse, I have it for a chorus, and then I have it I don't have it for that verse, and I don't have it for this chorus. So it's up to you to kind of like see where those go. Really, you remember the reason that I sort of fought against placing those is because I found that everybody was kind of doing the karaoke method. And I still find that people will lean towards that, but I find that if you only do it for a part of the tune, then you kind of get best of both worlds. You can read it and use those visual cues to kind of learn how the cadence fits with each of these chord changes, but most importantly, you're kind of forced, because it doesn't happen throughout the thing, to learn how it sounds and learn whatever pattern that you're trying to memorize is, right? Okay, cool. Let's flow through that first verse and that first chorus, and we'll just do it in whole notes, and then we'll work on the right hand, okay? F minor, A flat, E flat, and B flat, and pay attention, we're going to do that 4 times before we jump into the chorus, which we're just playing F minor to B flat. Oh, you've seen these before? I just wanted to make sure. These are repeat symbols. This after means that you repeat it times 4 instead of times 2. So that means that this is times 4. And I want to treat this all as one thing. We haven't learned what the riff is, what I played kind of at the end of our little run through. Boo-da-doo-da-boo-da-bum-bum. Right? That riff, it's kind of part of the chorus. Because while that is happening, Mad world. Right, that's sort of like the chorus of the tune. Make sense? Okay, awesome. All right, so let's try going through verse 1 and chorus 1. 1, 2, 1, 2, F minor, and all around A flat, our familiar faces, E flat, worn out places, worn out faces, bright and early for the daily races, E flat, going nowhere, B flat, going nowhere, their tears are filling up their glasses, no expression, B flat, no expression, hide my head, I wanna drown my sorrow, no tomorrow, B flat, no tomorrow, and F minor, I find it kinda funny, find it kinda sad, dreams in which I'm dying are best I've ever had, find it hard to tell you, find it hard to take, people run in circles, let's just play F minor. Mad world. Nicely done. Okay, cool. So you can kind of see that really, when we sort it out into jobs, there's one job for the left hand. No, I take that back. There's two jobs for the left hand, and there's going to be one job for the right hand. So again, I'm going to kind of hit on this point. That's your job in the first week, is to make those just be automatic, right? By the time we see each other, if you can be at the place where you just sort of like autopilot into the picking and the chords, autopilot, like no, it just means your brain is kind of free to absorb all of the new information that we're going to be learning in week 2. And you really have that solid foundation, right? To be able to sing and play over it. Okay, cool. Let's take a breather for a second. All right, how's that all feel? Good? Cool. Yeah, let's talk.
Yeah, good.
Those chord shapes you've seen before?
Not all of them.
Not all of them.
Mm-mm.
Which ones have we seen?
Like
B flat, probably.
Yeah, E flat, B flat.
Uh-huh.
Not A flat.
Not E minor or F minor.
And not F minor.
Or maybe not F minor in that way, right? The open position for an F minor looks like this. 1 0 1 3. But I really love in this sequence, it's kind of a teachable moment too to start to talk about movable chord shapes, because you've got an E minor chord shifting and it turns into an F minor, a G chord shifting and it turns into an A flat, right? It kind of wraps our head.
And I may have learned these in a song, but like I said, it's like you get like 7-8 songs in a month, and
that almost made me throw up from anxiety.
You're like because the way Casey does his class is he has a topic, and people do their requests. So it could be Beatles songs, and so then everybody has a Beatles song that is on a request. So then he's trying to get through everybody's requests in the month, and by week 3 we're picking one song to do a collage in for the
so you're putting
final
most
class.
Of your focus into
so most
that.
of it is in 3 weeks, learning, and so I could have learned these chords in a song that we've gone through, but see, that's the thing. I thought, okay, I need to just do something different, because I just didn't feel like anything was sticking in my brain.
Yeah, it's a little it can feel a little fragmented, like so much information is flying by you that you don't really ever like let it sit. In the last year I've been really digging into this concept of muscle memory. Like, what is it? And the best way I can explain it is kind of how I did earlier, which is connecting movement to sound, right? It's connecting the sound of that chord and the expectation of what chord's coming next, connecting it to the movement that our left hand needs to make that switch, right? That's really that's what we're looking for. And I'm always trying to do that, is like, what is the actual thing we're trying to achieve, and what's the straightest line we can go to get there? And that's why I always talk about left hand shapes as transformation. You kind of learn it in this sequence. And for me, I really appreciate my hands being able to do that job. It just frees me up so much to be able to do other things. Like you notice, in class, I'm playing the chords, but I'm talking at the same time. I'm saying complete sentences that are hopefully a little bit coherent. You know what I mean? But the only way that I can pull that off, the only way is with muscle memory. If I was still trying to get my fingers around those chords, if they seemed a little unfamiliar to me, that would be a very difficult thing to do. Talk at all. Right. And so really you're asking yourself to do a similar job that I am, being able to talk while you play. But you're going to sing while you play, right? and that makes it helpful because it's at least a melody and it's never improvised. It's the same thing. I mean, it could be, but it isn't when we're kind of learning in this context. But it's still the same idea. You're still trying to move your mouth, engage with your voice at the same time you're doing all of these other skills. So remember, we want those skills to be at a certain level. We want those skills to be on autopilot, like no management on your part. And the only way we can get to that, do you remember? It's repetition, right? Repetition. That's right. Exactly. Consistency in execution, the way we get that is through repetition. And so we want to create small exercises like we've been doing in class. You can always go back, watch this class again, and kind of create a small 1 to 2 minute exercise and see if every time you pick up your uke, you can just run through that. Even if it feels good, even if you're starting to go, oh yeah, I'm starting to get these changes, you still want to continue to build that muscle memory, because the deeper you can create that connection, the easier it is for you to start to build skills on top of it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool?
Yeah, I think, how I saw doing classes with Casey is like I was copying. I wasn't learning, I was copying. It was kind of like, here's a picture, and instead of learning how to paint the picture, I put, my tracing paper over it, and I'm like outlining it and coloring it in.
Totally.
And I didn't feel like I was, really learning a song at all. Totally. I don't know if that makes sense.
It totally makes sense to me. And I want you to know this, is that I hope that this sort of more focused format kind of reaps some of those benefits that you're looking for. Because I was, I probably said this even back then, I was very hesitant to drop back, right? Like you just said 6 songs in a month. That's sort of the expectation. You can go in a workshop, an hour-long workshop, and they'll hand out fucking sheets for 3 different songs, and you're like, wait, what? We're gonna learn 3? I hope they all have the same picking pattern. You know what I mean? Like the width or the breadth of what people normally cover in ukulele curriculum, it really kind of like leads to people not gaining repertoire. They don't know how to play any songs, right? Like, you go to like that Santa Cruz ukulele book, and there's 555 songs with like 396 pages, and you're sort of like, well, where do I know how to play any of these songs? Right? It's sort of like it kind of leads to more of that karaoke kind of thing where you're like, okay, I can do this song if I stare at the piece of paper and I like remind myself of that rhythmic pattern, and I skip over that chord, and I skip over that chord that I can never hit, I never learned. You know what I mean? Like that approach for me, it's fun, it's great, but it really doesn't get inside you. You don't internalize it, right? Which is really what we're looking for. All right, any questions so far about left-hand shapes, chord progressions?
Nope.
Okay, cool. Those 2 chord progressions, the verse and the chorus, that's what we want to lock in. Let's get into our right hand. It's actually a really, really simple rhythm this month. The first time I taught this song, I actually kind of like transposed the key a little bit. The original key, especially for that Gary Jules version, which is what we're really stealing from, that piano version, is in this key, F minor. But actually, most of the time when you learn this on ukulele, it's transposed down half step, right? Because all of those chords suddenly become easy, right? If I dropped all of those, it'd be an E, it'd be a G, it'd be a D, and it'd be an A. So those are all easier chords, right? I mean, you just look at the names. A flat, E flat, B flat, you know what I mean? Like, most people don't know those chords. But I've been on a really big push to try and get into original source trying to preserve the key. That way you can use the original recording as an audio resource for yourself. Like you can play along without having to mess with your tuning or whatever. You can just play along. And so that's really why I wanted to relearn this tune. And I think I had a more complicated picking pattern, but if you listen to that original, it's just those quarter notes, kind of boom ka, that very repetitive kind of feel. Cool. So picking pattern, we're going to be playing the thumb on the C string like this, right? Cool. And then we're going to take our pointer finger and our middle, and we're going to play the E and A strings simultaneously. E and A like that. Cool. Now let's just go over a little bit of technique stuff. A good picking pattern should finish in this sort of ergonomic position. A lot of times when we pick, our fingers look like this. Do you see how the thumb, the pointer, and the middle all kind of ran into each other? They're crisscrossing. This means that I don't really have a clean path for any of these strings. If I take these three strings, I grab them at the same time, and I slide my thumb forward and my fingers back, then what happens is I can push down with my thumb, and I can pull up with my pointer and middle straight into my palm. So I kind of finish in this position, right? Way more of an ergonomic kind of feel. And the best thing is all three of these fingers have their own path with no interference to be able to move through the string and kind of finish and follow through after that strike, right? Cool. All right, let's go ahead and play the C string with our thumb, pointer and middle, pull with our E and A strings. Cool, and we're just going to alternate. C, E and A, and C, and E and A, and C, and E and A, and C, and E and A. Good. See if we can pick up the tempo just a little bit. All right, so for our rhythm, we're actually going to be playing in quarter notes. There's nothing else to learn. If the beginner version of this tune is where you're going to stop, right? It's just that alternating thing. And this actually happens all the way through the song other than the riff, right? All right, let's see if we can try to make this flow nice and even. If you're looking for just a little bit more stability, see how my pinky can kind of kick out and stand on the soundboard to give me a little bit like a leg, right? And it'll make my hand feel a little bit more stable. Most importantly, it can like let my fingers memorize the movements they need to do to play each of these strings, right? Okay. Cool. So this is it. That's all we need to know. Remember, lock it in, create like an exercise. Maybe you just start with this picking pattern and then you start to add the chord shapes after. All right, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go to F minor first and we're just gonna hang out on that chord. So I'm playing 5, 4, and 3. And now let's move A flat, 3, 4, and 3, right? Let's go 2 member measures like this because I'm not ready to move yet. Let's visualize that E flat, 1 more measure, and here we go. Ready, switch. Let's go to our third chord. Sorry about that. E flat, 0, 3, 3, and 1. Yeah, beautiful. And let's go to B flat, 0, 2, 1, and 1. Nice. Let's shift up. 5, 4, 3. Let's shift down. 0, 3, 4, and 3. G shape. Nicely done. Let's shift again. 0, 3, 3, and 1. Let's shift again. 0, 2, 1, and 1. Beautiful. Yeah. And I see your ring finger going up. That's totally fine if you want to keep it that way. All right, back up. 5, 4, and 3. Yeah. Remember, that's just a harder version of B flat. And you notice that A flat, 0, 3, 4, and 3, through this picking pattern, we're actually never touching the G string, right? So that helps a little bit with that dissonance that we might feel with the open G string. And still be able to move through all these chord shapes. Nice. Good. And let's finish on F minor. Nicely done. Okay, cool. So let's shift. Let's see if we can play through a little bit of the verse. Cool. Remember, F minor, A flat, E flat, B flat. I'm going to pick up the tempo just a touch. You cool with that? All right, here we go. Nice and slow. 1, 2, ready, and F minor. all around me. A flat, familiar faces. E flat, worn out places. B flat, worn out faces. F minor, bright and early. A flat, for the daily races. E flat, going nowhere. B flat, going nowhere. 2 more times. Their tears are A flat, up their glasses. E flat, no expression. B flat, no expression. F minor, hide my head. I'm A flat, drown my sorrow. E flat, no tomorrow. B flat, no tomorrow. And let's go straight into that chorus. Remember, F minor to B flat. 2, 3, 4. And I find it kind of funny, I find it kind of sad. Dreams in which I'm dying are the best I've ever had. Find it, B flat, tell you, find it hard to take. When people run in circles, it's a very... And let's finish on F minor. Mad world. Nicely done. Okay. Cool. Let's chat for a second, and then we'll talk a little bit about Slack and signing in, make sure that we get access to that. Do you have any questions, comments, concerns?
No.
It's so nice.
It's just that chorus transition's a little...
Yeah. Big jump. Yeah. A lot of remember, if we're trying to memorize transformation, if we're trying to view a chord progression as like a routine, like a dance routine, it's really important to remember that the end goes back to the beginning. So oftentimes we can like practice our transitions and we know how to move this chord. Okay, cool. I can go second to third. I can go third to fourth, but we don't practice fourth to first, right? So we got to practice that jump in the same way. And remember, in this jump, it's the same as the reverse. If I go to the shape without moving up the fretboard, I see that it's actually not that big of a transition. I go here, I drop my pointer in middle, and my ring finger goes up. So you want to practice that transformation, and then you want to take that transformation and apply the position shift, right? You've got B flat, jump into the shape, and you can just move it. Cool? So yeah, make sure you're practicing chord 4 to chord 1 as well, right? Because that can be a little bit tricky. Cool. And, I've talked about this a lot in the past as well. Transitions feel surprising because we don't practice them. You know what I mean? I'm always saying how parts of songs are like modular, that verse and then that chord. And so I sort of force them being broken and being learned independently. But a lot of the times we can be really good at this part and then really good at this part. Like I can know how to play the riff and I can know how to do the picking pattern, but going between them, it always feels jarring, right? Especially when I'm trying to sing and play and all those things. And so if it feels jarring, you just need to practice the transition more. You got to go once from the riff into the chorus. But kind of funny. And that's it. You just work the end of one part into the beginning of the next part. And you just sort of like make that be your loop. And as long as you're exposing yourself to that transition, it'll start to feel less and less like a surprise, right? Next week, we're going to be working on the riff. So that means another part that you're going to have to actually transition between. The more you practice those transitions, the less of it feels like jarring, like a speed bump. You're like, oh my God, I shift, because you got to change roles a lot of times, right? You got to go from singing and playing to playing a riff to picking something to going into a new part. So you got to make sure you're practicing that transition as many times as you can. Okay, cool. So you said that you so you clicked on the link that said Ukulab Slack, Ukulab Live Slack feed, and yes. Where did it go to? It went to.
So it opened it up, and it has like uke solo, uke standard, but then there's nothing there.
There's nothing there, like it doesn't show up. Have you?
I mean, it shows up, but there's nothing.
Have you used Slack in the past?
I think with you.
Okay, cool. So I was using Slack then. So you've got an account set up or whatever.
Yes.
You've got your own thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, and my suggestion would always be to download it into. Wait a minute. What? Oh yeah. Everything is going to be downloaded into. Oh, you know why that might be? Because that's not an upgraded space. That could be it too. Hold on a second. Ukulab Live, add coworkers. Remind me of your email, Chris. KLTOMI
61 at msn.com.
61 at msn.com. KLTOMI 61 at msn.com.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to send this.
Okay.
So it said invited as a coworker. Most of the time when people are like a part of this space. Oh yeah, you just popped in there. Okay, so now you might be a part of this space. Do you have Slack? Okay. Do you have Slack open that you can check it real quick? If you don't worry about it. I gotta jump to the next class. Okay. Chris, was it your plan to jump into the next class, or do you just gonna stick to the beginner intermediate today?
I was just gonna do this beginner one.
Too soon. Too soon. Month. I love
but
it.
You know what? What confused me a little bit, real quick, was that in the dashboard.
Yep.
It said September.
Yeah, it's just
fast card.
It's just.
So
it's just a typo. It's just a typo.
Okay.
I have a new person that's like kind of being my virtual assistant that I've sort of handed over all of the website And to tell you the truth, even before I did this, I still made mistakes. So it's helpful. Okay. It's helpful when people point.
October.
Yeah.
So yeah, was it?
It's helpful when people point those things out because then we can hopefully nip it in the bud.
Gotcha.
Okay, cool. But the link worked. You obviously showed up in the right class, and all of the material is correct. You've got all of the stuff from Mad World. Awesome. Okay. Chris, I got to say, it is lovely to see you. Thanks so much for dropping into class, and we'll see you next time, okay?
Okay, bye.
All right, take care. Bye.